So there are growing questions over Hunter Biden, the president-elect's son, as the Justice Department intensifies its investigation into his taxes. Hunter Biden confirmed the investigation yesterday, although federal prosecutors have been looking into his finances since 2018. Ed O'Keefe is following the latest developments in Wilmington, Delaware.
Mr. Biden's youngest son has been the subject of congressional and media investigations for work he did in China and Ukraine while his father was vice president. But no probe has found evidence of wrongdoing. In his statement Tuesday, Mr. Biden said he is deeply proud of his son, who has fought through difficult challenges, including the vicious personal attacks of recent months, only to emerge stronger. The announcement of the investigation came on the day the president-elect announced his pick for defense secretary, retired Army General Lloyd Austin, who would be the first black man to lead the Pentagon. Austin says he understands concerns from lawmakers, including several Democrats, who say he hasn't been out of the Army long enough and have reservations about granting him a waiver to serve.
I recognize that being a member of the president's cabinet requires a different perspective and unique responsibilities from a career in uniform. And I intend to keep this at the forefront of my mind.
While Mr. Biden is preparing for his administration, President Trump is focusing on overturning the election. The president joined a lawsuit brought to the Supreme Court by the Attorney General of Texas that is seeking to invalidate ballots from 4 battleground states won by President-elect Biden. 17 Republican attorneys general joined the lawsuit. At a Hanukkah party at the White House, President Trump praised the new legal strategy.
I want to thank Texas for starting it. They read the papers, and the papers were so compelling that everybody's just joining.
All right, so Ed O'Keefe is with us now from Wilmington, Delaware. Ed, what are you hearing from the Biden campaign about this Texas lawsuit? Because as you mentioned in your report, these attorneys general are trying to overturn his predicted victories in 4 battleground states. So are they even reacting to it?
Not really. I mean, earlier this week when the Supreme Court issued that one-sentence decision that tossed out the Pennsylvania case, the Biden campaign, the campaign operation at the transition made clear, look, the election's over. Joe Biden's getting ready to be inaugurated in January, and that remains their stance, that they see these cases without merit. And it's telling that there are even Republican officials who feel that way. John Cornyn, Ted Cruz's partner in the Senate from Texas, raised some questions about it last night at the Capitol, and when word got out about that, Republicans like Jeb Bush were speaking out saying, exactly, this doesn't make any sense. Why would you do this? How can you expect a court to have one state's case arguing that 4 states' results should be tossed out, even be heard? How would that work? On what grounds would that happen? So we'll see how far this goes. But clearly the president is continuing to use every potential avenue possible. Yeah, that's his right. But after a while, when you continue to have courts across the country reject those arguments, one wonders how much longer it can go on. And as the president has made clear, he's going to keep going with this as long as he can. Remember, Monday is the day that the Electoral College meets in all 50 states. Perhaps at that point we'll see a shift in the strategy, or more of an admission from the president or his team or his allies that things have changed and Biden is indeed going to be the president. But, you know, until then, or unless that changes, he's going to soldier on. We should point out the Supreme Court has asked the 4 states that Texas is suing to respond by the end of today. And so we'll see at that point what exactly the high court decides to do.
Okay, so let me ask you about this Hunter Biden investigation. What we know is that the Department of Justice has been investigating him since 2018 and his taxes since 2018, but we're only hearing about this now. So why are we hearing about it now, especially as the president-elect chooses his own attorney general to lead the department?
Well, we're only hearing from Hunter Biden now that he's been made aware of it. He said in a statement released by the transition office that he learned about this only on Tuesday, and that it's looking into his tax affairs, and that ultimately the investigation will find that what he did was legal and appropriate. The president-elect's team issued a statement saying that he supports his son, that he's endured attacks from Republicans in recent months, and that he's going to come out of all of this stronger. What we do know now is that this investigation has been underway since about 2018. And CBS News did learn just before the election that this kind of an investigation was underway. Our Catherine Herridge had confirmed that report at the time. And what we know also is that the Justice Department essentially put this on the back burner simmering in the weeks leading up to November 3rd, not because it's Hunter Biden, but because it was deemed a politically sensitive investigation. And the Justice Department has a policy of sort of putting things like that on hold in the lead up to elections, whether it's a state matter, whether it's, something involving the son of a presidential candidate. They do that, and then it picks up again after Election Day. We've seen this in recent years in some federal cases involving governors, other political officials across the country, where you hit that sort of late August lull, you have to hang back, and then it picks up again after that, and that's what appears to have happened in this case. What this does to affect the president-elect's decision on an attorney general is unclear, but you bring up a good point. There will be some who wonder whether or how the president-elect can be picking someone right now who may ultimately have to either be involved in or recuse themselves from some kind of a decision down the line about what to do with the case looking into Hunter Biden.
So we've been talking over the past, couple of weeks about what the president-elect is doing in terms of his cabinet picks to meet the expectations of various minority groups, the Hispanic community, African-American communities, voters who helped to get him to where he is right now. But he also has another challenge. He has to bring together two sort of wings of the Democratic Party, right? The more progressive wing and the more moderate wing, if you want to call it that. One of the more outspoken representatives of the more progressive wing is Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She says she's going to take sort of a wait-and-see approach before she sort of makes a final conclusion on what his cabinet is shaping up to look like. How's he doing when it comes to sort of pulling these two factions of the Democratic Party together?
Well, not only is the New York Congresswoman raising some questions and concerns about it, but Senator Bernie Sanders, who's arguably an even more outspoken and influential member of the progressive wing, has also said that he hasn't seen, at least so far, somebody that represents the progressive wing of the party getting a spot in the cabinet. He'll continue to raise those concerns unless or until he sees somebody who does that. Look, the reality is a cabinet must be confirmed by the Senate. The reality is the Senate might still be controlled by Republicans by the time Joe Biden is elected. Does he want to put up a bunch of people who are deemed too liberal, too extreme, too out of the mainstream by not only Republican senators, but maybe even some moderates who sit in the Senate, and then have them rejected and have to go out and find somebody else and delay the start of his administration? Or does he want to put in people who have a shot at getting quickly confirmed, with whom Republicans really can have no real substantive concerns? And that appears to be the strategy. Everything from the decision to pick someone like Lloyd Austin, whom it would be hard to reject from a political standpoint, given his resume, given the history he would make, to other picks like Tom Vilsack to be the agriculture secretary. While there were 3 or 4 other people in the running who Democrats were pushing for, the Biden team points out that Vilsack was unanimously confirmed by the Senate and then ended up serving for 8 years. So he knows the place, and there was no political concern with him holding the position. And even Chuck Grassley, the Republican senator from Iowa this week, said, yeah, Vilsack did a great job, and he said he looks forward to seeing Vilsack serve for only 4 years, meaning Biden might not win another term. But that's the kind of support you need from a practical standpoint in order to get those cabinets started. So, AOC and Senator Sanders may have concerns. They are justified because the progressive wing of the party certainly put up its support and resources and turned out supporters to elect Biden. But the realities of governing, and this is what Biden warned about during the campaign, are such that you got to find compromise. And so far, at least, with the exception of maybe Neera Tanden, his pick for Office of Management and Budget, there hasn't necessarily been someone who is explicitly, overtly far more partisan and perhaps left-leaning than the rest.
So you just brought up the important role that the Senate will play. The balance of power is still up in the air because we are awaiting a runoff election in Georgia. President-elect Biden is set to travel to Georgia next week to campaign for the Democratic candidates there. Tell me about why this is so significant.
Oh, everything rides on the decision in Georgia. Remember, if the Democrats win the 2 seats, the Senate splits 50-50 with Vice President Kamala Harris breaking the tie. If the Republicans win even one of them, they hold control of the chamber. They'll get to determine when or if, important to to highlight the word if, confirmation hearings are held for the new president's cabinet picks, and how quickly. They will be a factor then in any legislative negotiations over significant bills, especially over COVID relief, possible changes to immigration policy that the new president has promised. So it's critically important. That is the message that people in Georgia have been hearing from both sides, from the candidates themselves and from the people who are coming to campaign for them. Early voting starts in Georgia next week. That's why the president-elect is going. He'll be there in the Atlanta area. Remember, it was in the closing days of the general election that Biden went to Georgia, that former President Obama went to Georgia, that Kamala Harris went to Georgia, and they all campaigned in and around metro Atlanta, knowing that if they could drive out typical Democratic voters and maybe independents and disaffected Republicans as well, that would probably give them just enough. There are some surveys that show a similar margin this time, about a 2 or 3 point game, which means they've got to do everything they can to turn out their supporters on either side, Republicans and Democrats. The vice president is going again to Georgia. It's likely the president himself will go again at some point. The stakes are just immeasurably high, and I don't quite think everyone else outside of Georgia, let alone people in Georgia, really appreciate how much of an impact the results of those two contests are going to have on the next 4 years.
Yeah, I think you have shed some light on that today, though. Ed, thank you very much.